Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, an IVF clinic is closing. Also, where does the buck stop at the Alabama Cannabis Commission? And the Business Council of Alabama launches Campaign 2026.
I want rustlers, cutthroats, murderers, bounty hunters, desperados, mugs, pugs, thugs, nitwits, halfwits, dimwits.
Giddy up. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V. Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by Susan Britt, research guru extraordinaire, and Josh Moon, columnist and investigative reporter at APR. Welcome.
Hiya.
Here we go.
Hey, BCA, Business Council of Alabama, just had their big event a couple of weeks ago down in Point Clear. This was the biggest one they've ever had. And from what I understand, it was very successful, went off without a hitch. And then right there at the end, former Republican Senator
Clay Schofield.
Thank you for taking the words out of my mouth, or putting them in my mouth, whichever you did, who is the executive vice president over at BCA, announced Campaign 2026, where they're going to make polling available, advanced research tools, money, opposition research, and all types of things to their selected group of candidates. Now, if you look at the powerhouse that the BCA is, they can raise a lot of money. Mm-hmm. Now, I know we have been calling on the business community for the last at least 5 years to exercise more influence over the state legislature, not because we think they need to control the government, but because we want business-friendly lawmakers, and we want businesses to be vested in the prosperity of Alabama. This, Susan, has ignited a firestorm on the far right. And nobody even knows what's in the plan yet. I mean, I don't know. I've called around and nobody I've talked to knows, but they're so fired up because they think that they're going to target the far extremes of the Republican Party, and God, don't I hope so.
Yeah, I think that's exactly where they're going. I mean, with our abortion laws, with trying to ban books in school, trying to control what's being taught in K through 12 and universities, with this IVF situation we're in right now. What business in their right mind would want to come to Alabama? I mean, it's embarrassing enough, but, BCA is about business in Alabama, and it's been a long time coming for them to actually get out of the gate and say something and start moving with the power that they do have.
Yeah. Well, Josh, 2010, when the Republicans took over the State House, the governor's mansion, and pretty much every aspect of state government, it was the BCA that powered that movement. And since then, they have lost control. Well, not control, that's a bad word. Lost influence because of these far right-wing and MAGA Republicans who go further to the extreme than I would say even their candidate.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. They did have control of things, and I think, it's I guess to give you an example of how things have shifted in the state. Three of the most influential politicians from a business standpoint right now are Anthony Daniels, Bobby Singleton, and Roger Smithers.
Right, Democrats. Right.
They're all three Democrats. And I think, and this is what people need to understand about businesses, and this is why I think that some people on the far right are taking this as an attack when what they should be looking at is how they could better serve some of these folks, because these are the constituents that employ the majority of Alabamians out there. And what those people want is steady and growth. Okay, they want someone who's steady,
Yeah.
someone they can rely on, someone that's not going to implement crazy ideas, that's going to drive away the opportunities to attract some of the best employees and some of the best businesses in the country. And they want to be able to grow those things, and you can't do that when you're doing some of the things that are happening in our state house right now with some of these folks. And it's just really that simple.
Well, I mean, they're not getting down to the business of the people and working on policies and things to bring business to Alabama. They're working on these bills that grab headlines that keep people upset and mad instead of what they need to do, which is, grow the state.
And I know the people in the business community. I am in business.
We're in the business community.
And so it's not a conservative or a liberal standpoint. It is about how do we make Alabama prosperous so that businesses only thrive if the state thrives.
Mm-hmm.
If it doesn't plug into a wall, well, it's not that big of a concern about power company. You know what I mean? And if it doesn't, but the overall business is what has to prosper. And that means that people have to prosper. And I think that's what I'm looking for. And I think you cannot attract business. And what we don't look at is the unrealized come. There are businesses that would come here that won't come here.
Right. And you got to think about when you're talking about some of your top BCA members, if a business comes here, it has to have Alabama Power. A business comes here, it has to have insurance for its employees, health insurance, Blue Cross Blue Shield. They need bank account, Regions Bank. And that's just the top tier of the business community here.
Right.
And then that trickles down to the other ones as well.
There are other power suppliers. There are other insurance suppliers. There are other
but
folks
they're
that do
businesses in Alabama. And once you track business, then everybody prospers. And kind of need advertising on a television show.
Yeah, well, that'd be even better, right? I want to get to this. Something that has seriously brought the state an embarrassing situation and is also hurting families is the ruling that, not the ruling, but the constitutional amendment that was passed in 2018 that guaranteed sanctity of life in the Constitution. So when an IVF case came before the Supreme Court of Alabama, they said you cannot destroy those embryos, or the destruction of those embryos is criminal because it is a person. And that has reverberated all over the country. And we have IVF clinics closing in Alabama. The price is going through the roof to do an IVF. And the people who are doing IVF are shipping the embryos out of state to keep them safe.
Yeah, and there are a lot of other states that are doing similar things because they're afraid that their Supreme Court is going to do something, or their legislature are going to do something similar to what Alabama has done. Now, Alabama did try to fix it with the bill this last session, but it did not make it retroactive.
That bill is as flimsy as they come.
It was just a reactionary bill. It didn't really do anything, and people are caught in limbo.
Josh, we just got about less than a minute.
Yeah, this is the consequences of pandering. Nobody is against IVF. I mean, really, have you ever heard prior to this anybody stand up and truly say that they were against IVF? Oh, this is an outrage what's taking place with the embryos and the IVF process. No one ever said that. But now, because you've put it into this context right here, now they've put themselves in this little box over here because they tried to pander for so long to a group of people when they never thought they'd be able to catch that row car out there. And now they've done it, and now they've got themselves up against the wall, and they're just screwing over good families and good people.
Yeah. Well, we have to leave it right there. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back.
My personal biggest pet peeve is kids who are not properly restrained, whether that be in a booster seat, a car seat, or even a simple seatbelt. Kids, they become projectiles, and it's terrifying.
It absolutely breaks my heart to know that something so innocent could be punished so severely.
Your children rely on you to be that person that says, no, you need to put your seatbelt on.
Your home is your most valuable asset. But what if someone tried to steal it from you? Property fraud is one of the fastest growing areas of fraud in the country today.
As a district attorney, I've seen firsthand the devastating effects of property fraud. That's why I'm proud to support the Montgomery County Probate Court's REACT program.
REACT is designed to protect your property and to give you peace of mind. By signing up, you'll receive an email notification if a document is filed against your property.
This program is a game changer. It has the potential to prevent fraud and protect countless homeowners throughout Montgomery County.
So don't wait. Sign up for REACT today and protect your home.
Protect your home with REACT. Sign up today.
Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. I know we beat the Alabama Medical Cannabis Commission like a rented mule, but they deserve to be beaten worse than a rented mule because they just will not follow the law according to people that know the law. Josh, you met this past week with senior lawyer
John
Mooresmith. I can't remember names today. What's going on with that? John Mooresmith, who helped write some of these laws that AMCC is having problems following them. Give us a little bit of what he's thinking.
Right. Well, John Mooresmith helped write Administrative Procedures Act, and that essentially governs what's taking place with all Alabama agencies. You know, it sets in place a process for, particularly when you are a government agency that decides makes licensing decisions for more businesses than what you have licenses to hand out. And so they set in place a hearing process that is supposed to take place that makes it fair for everyone. And that process is something that the AMCC was bound to follow by state law. Instead, the AMCC ignored that and just set up their own process, which is why we're in this we have all these legal problems that are taking place right now. The AMCC decided to ignore what was supposed to have happened. And let me just tell you, what was supposed to have happened is you're going to have the applicants come in. They were going to submit their applications. They were then going to have a process where everybody else could say, no, wait, we don't believe they should have the license. We believe we should have the license. And in which case they could all intervene in each other's case. And you would have hearings before a judge or before the commission or whatever. And you would then present evidence, you would present witnesses, you'd present documents, and everybody could challenge each other's witnesses and documents and all of this stuff. And these things happen all the time in this state. And they just decided, man, that seems like a lot of work. Why don't we just name who we want to have licenses?
Well, it seems like that was the whole intent. They wanted to name who they wanted to name to have licenses, Susan.
Yeah, they did, and it's pretty obvious the way they let people around the portal deadline, the way they selected the candidates on the grading scale that they had that was absolutely ridiculous. It's obvious that they were trying to point it to certain entities.
Yeah. You know, one of my favorite presidents was Harry S. Truman, simply because he was a humble man and he got thrown into the end of World War II and actually did an incredible job. And he had what we would call good old-fashioned common sense. Mm-hmm. And he had a sign on his desk that read, "The buck stops here." And what that means in layman's terms is that, the failures and the successes stop with the leader. Mm-hmm. Now, over at AMCC, we can't find where the buck stops because it evidently doesn't stop with the commissioners. It doesn't seem to want to stop with the executive director, John McMillan. It certainly doesn't stop with the lawyers. So it's just, there's nobody taking responsibility.
Well, it's what the Republicans like to call kicking the can down the road.
Yeah.
They're just playing hot potato with who's in charge today or tomorrow. And nobody's taking any responsibility. I know in our business, you and I, the buck stops with us. Why can't it stop somewhere over at the AMCC?
I mean, Josh, you'd think that they would take a page out of Harry Truman's book and find where the buck stops.
Yeah. Well, that or somebody with more power would stop it for them.
Yeah.
You know, and that's either the legislature or the governor's office or somebody would raise some hell about what's going on over there. You know, and I've heard that the AG's office has taken a look at what's happening and explored some of the things, and maybe that's the route. Maybe we can lean on Steve Marshall for something good.
Yeah.
And you know, listen, I'm all for it. Steve Marshall wants to do something good. I'll write great things about it.
Yeah.
Because listen, this stuff needs to get into the hands of the people who need it, and
Right.
that's why that's what we're after with this right now. And it's not going to happen with the folks who are over there because they're stuck in this purgatory right now where they're scared to move either way because somebody's going to sue them over the crap that they've done so far.
Right, because it all goes back to those first decisions, which John McMillan was in the room when they decided to open up the portal against state law. They decided to grant some people an opportunity to submit more material than others, and they generally played favorites with folks, Susan.
And let's be honest here. The lawyers for the AMCC, particularly Will Webster, it looks like he's trying, from what I've heard and what I've seen, trying to set up his retirement fund out of, from the state.
Yeah.
Out through the AMCC.
Now,
so, let's be honest here. The lawyers here are also making a fortune.
I mean, Josh, about somewhere in the neighborhood of $2 million the state has paid to these attorneys. And, I've heard recently that the Alabama Department of Finance has gone over there or met with them and said, hey, when is this going to end? There was never any budget for these lawsuits. So we just have to keep paying.
Well, it's nice, I guess if you can. I've never had a job where I could screw something up and get paid because I screwed it up.
Yeah.
As long as you just keep screwing it up,
Yeah.
you get money out of it. And I'm not saying that they did any of that intentionally. I think they set this thing up the way they were instructed to kind of set it up, and they tried to come up with a legal process to do so because of their clients told them how to do these things or told them what they wanted out of these things, I should say. And so, listen, there are a lot of questions I think some people should be asking about what was the intent here. Why did some people take such steps to get outside of the law and to not follow the law? Because I've heard from the heads of a lot of agencies ever since I wrote the story about Jack Mooresmith and what he has said, who said, you got to really try to get around the AAPA because everyone knows in state government that's the law that you're supposed to follow.
Well, so what you're telling me, either these are the most incompetent people we have ever had running an agency because everybody else knows how to do at least the simple stuff, or there's something hinky. And I'm almost on the side of probably a little bit of both, but
I'm on the side of hinky.
You're on the side of hinky. It's always a safe bet that some corruption is going on somewhere, isn't it?
Well, I think someone once said the answer to all your questions is money. And I'm going to say the answer to this question is money somewhere along the way.
Yep.
It all goes back to what Harry Truman said. The buck stops here. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back.
My personal biggest pet peeve is kids who are not properly restrained, whether that be in a booster seat, a car seat, or even a simple seatbelt. Kids, they become projectiles, and it's terrifying.
It absolutely breaks my heart to know that something so innocent could be punished so severely.
Your children rely on you to be that person that says, no, you need to put your seatbelt on.
125. As a paramedic, you wouldn't believe the things that we've seen.
I've seen all types of horrible things.
I mean, we're there basically picking up the pieces from your worst day.
Everyone is just driving and not paying attention.
We all have the same goal. All of us want to go home alive and safe and harm nobody else in the process.
Slow down. Be careful. Care about the other people on the road. Don't be the reason that someone else doesn't go home tonight.
Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. Josh, I'm going to direct this to you because if anybody knows, you know. The Democratic Party nationally is...
I don't know, Bill. I don't know.
is more unified than any time since 2008 when Barack Obama first ran for the presidency. You know, it was unified, it was energized, and they were excited about this new moment in government and in presidential history. This exuberance seems to have channeled to Kamala Harris. The same type of energy, the same type of we are ready and prepared to go and we are unified has transferred. Now, the Democratic Convention starts, tomorrow. Is going to go through Tuesday and through the end of the week. And Josh, they have it, they're still fighting about who's going to be the delegate from Alabama.
Yeah, I don't know, Bill. Listen, I will say, first of all, I would like to point out that how much excitement is generated, apparently, when you decide to elect a qualified, progressive minority candidate at the top of your ticket. We've seen it now with Barack Obama. We've seen it with Kamala Harris. And so I think that is all great things. Now, what's taking place with the Alabama Democratic Party is, this is what they do, man. And it's honest to God. It's so tiring. It is exhausting to do this all the time. And this fighting, this constant fighting between them. I'll say, I do think the National Party and the Harris campaign bear some responsibility in this, because they took the delegates, they swapped the delegates out, which is their right. I'm not saying that's not their right. It's absolutely their right. But there was no real communication with the state party about why they were doing it and that they were going to do it. They just sent them a letter saying, hey, we're going to replace most of your delegates with these delegates. And then they turned to Terry Sewell, they turned to Mayor Randall Woodfin and to former Senator Doug Jones for recommendations on who should replace those folks. And that, of course, angered Joe Reed and Randy Kelly. And then, it then turned into this back and forth where they threatened lawsuits for a little while and then finally figured out there was no pathway for that. And now they wanted a challenge late. And now they're talking about taking two sets of delegates and I guess just having a fight on the convention floor over who gets to say what about who. And then wrapped up in all of this is apparently Randy Kelly and Joe Reed did not vote for Kamala Harris when it came time to vote for Kamala Harris a couple weeks ago. And, it just, honestly, I don't know to what end any of this helps. But I can tell you this, it's been made out to be this racial issue, and they put Doug Jones out there as this person that was, Randy Kelly called him a Confederate Democrat. My God. It's not a racial issue. This is the consequences of actions. Okay. This is the consequences of trying to thumb your nose at the DNC over the bylaws issues that have taken place. Mm-hmm. This is the consequences of not voting for or not supporting Barack Obama over Hillary Clinton in 2008 and not supporting Joe Biden over Michael Bloomberg in 2020. These are the things that they don't trust the leadership currently at ADP. And so they did not trust their delegates. Yeah. And so they replaced them. Yeah. And that's what's taken place. And there's bad blood there. And I think there's fault on both sides, but it is not being handled very well by the state party.
Is anybody surprised?
Yeah, nobody's surprised. It's Alabama.
It's Alabama. It's Alabama Democratic Party. They're always in some sort of tiff or thumbing the nose at somebody or, an argument or, somebody taking over the party.
And you know what? But Caroline Dobbs, who is running for the 2nd Congressional.
No.
What?
No. Caroline Dobson.
I get her first name right and I get her last name screwed up.
Yeah.
Caroline Dobson. Pardon me. Are you sure it's Dobson? Because I have questions.
Has been for the last 100 times.
She has come out and released a press release that says she's standing with the disenfranchised Democrats and that they can count on Ms. Dobson. Just give her her vote. She's standing for black folks.
Good on her. I don't think that's going to work very well.
I
But
thought the sound just went off in the studio.
you could have heard a pin drop. Yeah.
I mean, hey, listen, it was a nice try. You know, it was a good swing and a miss. You know, you had to do something.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know that this was it,
Yeah.
but nice swing at it.
Well, anyway, it's sort of interesting. Hey, Governor Ivey this past week announced $30 million in funding for 25 projects in coastal Alabama, and it's supported from the Gulf of Mexico Energy Security Act of 2006.
Mm-hmm.
This money keeps rolling in here, and it is always great to see the governor handing out these dollars. You know, it's just great.
Well, interesting, so far during her administration, she's handed out $210 million GoMesa dollars in all.
Yeah.
But this is exciting too, because to the Gulf of Mexico, this is going to bring environmental education, water quality, sewer, and stormwater infrastructure, which we're looking on our second hurricane coming up through now, and more recreational access to the Gulf. So this is all good and exciting stuff.
Hey, Josh, again, you don't have to agree with her policies, but Governor Ivey is one of those politicians that does try to get money into the hands of the community and the people of Alabama most of the time.
Right. Well, listen, I enjoyed that they handed out when it comes from Democrats in the federal government, and occasionally they might mention those folks' names. I don't know. It would be nice, but you're right. The Governor Ivey, like some other folks, have figured out the secret to politics, which is people don't really want you to be out there doing crazy things.
No.
They want you to go to ribbon cuttings. They want you to hand out dollars. They want you to make a handful of good decisions on things. And they want you to be somebody they can rely on to call and get things straight.
Yeah.
And I think Governor Ivey has figured this thing out through her many years of service in the state. And listen, I don't really have a whole lot of problems with Kay Ivey.
Yeah, and this goes back to the BCA thing in that, more recreational, our better beaches will bring more business here too.
Well, and you want a governor who doesn't say stupid things just to get attention. You want a governor that is steady, that, like Josh says, does a handful of things every year and moves the state forward.
It would be nice to have a legislature like that.
I'm excited about the BCA and campaign 2026. Anyway, you've been watching the voice of Alabama politics. You watch us because we watch them.